Welcome to the All-Star Break edition of Sharing Sox. I am Southside Sox duty geezer Lee Allen, along with my son and West Coast correspondent Will, who is sitting in front of, for those of you on audio, a photo of Liam Hendrick in the much attacked All-Star uniform of the American League. I understand that Hendrick kind of went big time on the audio last night. I watched when he pitched, but I turned it off the second the last pitch was thrown, so I didn't get in on what I guess was most of his verbal action.
Well, it was kind of interesting because he was mic'd and he had an earpiece, but I think it's pretty clear the earpiece wasn't working because he was not responding to the commentators at all. And I think because his earpiece wasn't working, he assumed none of this stuff was working. So he kept his usual Aussie R-rated demeanor throughout the inning. Nothing offensive aimed towards anyone but himself. But yeah, it was pretty hysterical. There's some pretty good clips of. I believe the best one is he's got a 1-1 count, 2 outs, throws a pretty mediocre pitch. It was a ball. It was no danger of being a home run, and you just hear him go, "God damn it, fucking finish it." Which is, I mean, I get it. That's the correct way to be feeling in that moment. So, loved his energy. I didn't expect him to go out with anything less in the All-Star game.
Well, when they said that he was Mike, I just heard the part where the first time I think I ever heard him talk was the catcher came out and they were talking signs on Mike. But as soon as it said that he was Mike, I thought, really? That's who you chose to Mike, really?
Well, I mean,
in a family TV show.
Well,
that's
yeah.
who you chose to Mike.
I think it's actually brilliant because once you get past 10 o'clock, there are less rules about what can be said on primetime TV. You can add in a few more cuss words. So they were like, oh, well, this is great. We definitely couldn't mic Liam in the third inning, but we can mic him in the ninth. So it was
Meanwhile,
just the late night adult, part of the game. But he was great. I also loved picking up he had the strikeout. His second batter was a strikeout, and he had his moment where he wanted the ball back, and he yelled like, "Give it back!" And then he got the ball back, and he was like, "Little sticker, little sticker," because he wanted them to save it for him. So very fun.
He was lucky. I mean, I've never seen a more fortunate play in baseball, probably, than the bounce back on the wild pitch that went straight to Zunino to put out by Narvaez at second. Otherwise, Liam would have been giving up at least one run. at any rate,
I mean, it not only went straight to Zunino, it went straight to where he needed it to be in order for the transfer to happen.
Yes, so in position to throw. We don't at 90 some miles an hour into his mitt.
We don't have any players who are throwing assists that well in real games right now. So the brick wall is better than a lot of the defense we're seeing in the majors right this year.
Unfortunately, Carlos did not get in. Tim barely got in. Defensively, I think he was on deck at the end of the game.
Yeah.
And did not have a play in the field. The White Sox who got the most mention was Tony La Russa, which I said when this all started, it's all going to be about La Russa. Forget the players, it's about La Russa. When I think it was when Lance Lynn was pitching, and the announcers go, "What an incredible job Tony La Russa has done." They did not go, "What an incredible job Alex Cora has done with Boston." They did not go, "What an incredible job Gabe Kapler has done with San Francisco." They didn't mention anybody else, any other manager, of course, the two who were actually managing, but nobody else of what an incredible manager they were, except Tony La Russa, who has done nothing to be an incredible manager. Nothing.
Yeah, I got pretty viciously attacked on Twitter last night, which is always fun because Stone did a very similar tweet in terms of what he's done is amazing. He's the best of all time, whatever. And I just responded, look, he was, but he's not anymore. And I said, he's flubbing the rules. He's throwing players under the bus. He doesn't really know the style of the game now. He bunts way too much. Um, and I got destroyed by the idiots, praised by uh, the people with brains. But it was the exact same thing, and everybody's coming back with, well, he's got 2 rings, and he's in the Hall of Fame, and I'm like, that has nothing to do with this year and why this team is good. And they're like, the facts are against you, and I'm like, no, the facts are saying that Tony La Russa is fine this year. He's made more bad decisions than good decisions. To which everyone's going, well, how about putting Billy Hamilton in center field late in the game to make that catch? Oh yeah, let's all praise the genius who puts the good fielder in the field late in the game when you're up. Like,
Yeah.
come on, guys. You would have made the exact same decision. And for me, it's the same thing that really pisses me off, because my whole thing was, in my tweet, I said they're not winning because of him. They just know how to win in spite of him, and that really made everybody mad. And I'm like, you guys, these are the players who are doing this. They're saying, well, he's doing it with minor leaguers. Okay, well, they're the ones who are coming up and rising to the occasion. Tony La Russa is not hitting the 98-mile-an-hour sinker for Gavin Sheets and Jake Berger. They're doing it. They're doing the work. And then what's the other reason that we have a winning record right now? Really, what's the reason? Starting pitching. Starting pitching is the reason we have a winning record, and that has nothing to do with Tony La Russa. If they were on there praising Ethan Katz all night, I would have far less of a problem with that, because Ethan Katz is making changes. He's making interesting decisions. He's getting players to be better, and he's keeping the rotation healthy. What's La Russa doing? He's not doing any of that. So come
Let's
on,
let,
you guys.
let's talk about one thing. I wrote a piece that's going to be posted. That we're recording this Wednesday midday, and it should be posted today, which is a debate between a White Sox fan, pessimist, and optimist. And one is saying, yeah, and the other one going, blah, blah, blah. Both agreeing they're going to win the division because it's a minor league division, but talking about playing against good teams. One of the things I found out while researching this, and I wasn't looking for this, but just kind of wandered into it, is I think it's Baseball Reference in its advanced pitching stats for starting pitchers has a category of how many pitches they threw. And White Sox starting pitchers have thrown 100 or more pitches 31 times. No other team has thrown starting pitchers that much, more than 22 times. And that's the Dodgers, 22 times. Now you can say, well, yeah, it's because our pitchers are really good, so they can make it to third time through the order. But go back to preseason, and it's be interesting with Stoney if he's now on the La Russa bandwagon, although of course he's paid to be.
Exactly. That was another argument I made. They're like, oh, you know more than Stone. I'm like, no, I don't, but I'm also not contractually obligated to support the manager. When was the last
But
time you heard the local team go on and just crap all over the manager? They don't do it. It's not their job. Go ahead. Sorry.
but I think Stoney's a very honest guy. I've seen honest interviews with him. I heard him on the Score, for example, where he's saying, well, maybe Tony's earlier, maybe he's not doing as well as he'd like to. But preseason, and Stoney was really big on this. So all the talk of the experts, not us, the experts was they got to watch the innings and consequently the pitches on these guys because they had the short season last year. They're not in the same kind of regular rotation condition that they would be had that been a regular normal season of 162 games. It's going to be very difficult. You're really going to have to pace your people. Now, they could all be wrong. Stoney could have been wrong about that. All the other experts could have been wrong. And that really they just were more rested from last year, so they're ready to go. But La Russa is the only one working his starting pitchers this hard. Nobody else is. Dave Roberts isn't. And it wouldn't be in Tampa Bay anyway because they got that third time through the order thing. But none of the other really good, Dusty Baker isn't. You name it. They're not doing it. maybe he knows. Maybe he knows that the thing to do is to pitch them a whole lot so that they build up strength for when the playoffs come. But maybe the other 29 managers are right, and you need to kind of reserve some strength for late in the season. Could be either way. I'd say I don't know,
It really
but
could.
time's got to tell. But it's really a big question.
I can tell you this. I think one of the best things that happened in that All-Star game last night was Carlos Rodon not pitching. It seemed like they were intentionally not using him like they were with Chapman, but I think it's great that he didn't pitch because we don't need him throwing more than he has to. We don't need him getting out of whack with his process. I'm really glad he didn't pitch. Lance Lynn, I worry a little less about because he's a workhorse. But yeah, I mean, who knows? But certainly, I would think that overworking them is a bad idea when you're dealing with a long season off of a short season. These you can argue these things all day and all night. We'll see how it plays out. Another big argument for the trolls on Twitter last night was he's so great with relievers. He's so great with handling relievers. He's so good at having the courage to put a guy out there who had a bad day the day before and give him another shot. To which I'm responding, they're not good. They're not good. Outside of Hendricks, really, and Ruiz sometimes. It's like, it doesn't take courage to put Foster, to put Marshall, to put Hoyer back out there. That's just who we have.
Particularly when Kopech was hurt.
Exactly. We need better pitchers. It's not brave to put them in the game. We just don't have other guys out there. So that argument is just so stupid. These guys are such boneheads. These La Russa defenders and apologists, or whatever you want to call them. They're just, and of course they're, if you can picture them, they're exactly what you picture, and they all have a whopping 2 followers on Twitter. But it's definitely weird to me that people are going so hard still in this La Russa, pro La Russa argument when we have been watching the games. It's, preseason, I thought these arguments were actually more acceptable. But now that we're watching the games, I'm not watching him do anything that a manager with half a brain wouldn't do. And most of the time, he's making bad decisions. So I truly don't understand it. I don't understand the love of La Russa. Take away his personal issues, which, we don't need to get into those again. Just look at the body of work this year. And I'm not impressed. I'm just not impressed at all. And then people say, oh, well, Renteria would have done so much better. I didn't say that. I don't think Renteria would have done so much better. But why don't we have a third option other than Renteria and the guy who left baseball back when he knew how to coach it and doesn't know how to coach it anymore? We should take a break, though. Let's take a break. We will come back. We'll talk about something else. What do you want to talk about? I don't remember.
Well, I want to do some more things that I found out doing the research for the piece that I wrote today.
Great. That sounds good. We're it's not an off week, but we haven't had many Sox games since the last time we talked.
Well, they played Baltimore. That doesn't really count.
Pleasant sweep over Baltimore. Thank goodness that happened. But yeah, we'll come back and talk about this some more on Sharing Sox. All right, welcome back to Sharing Sox. The Geezer has an article dropping later today talking about the pro La Russa versus anti-La Russa, or optimistic Sox fan versus
it really has. I don't know that I even mentioned La Russa in the whole thing, other than with regard to that what we've gone over with the pitchers and their number of pitches a game. But what I was looked at more than anything else is how the Sox do against good teams and bad teams. We know last year they were 21-3 against the Royals, Tigers, and Pirates, and 14-22 against everybody else. It's like that this year. They're 16-24 against teams 500 or above. That's, they're great at beating up on bad teams. They're terrific, and you got to do that. That's wonderful that they do that. They are not holding their own against the good teams. And Yes, it's without Robert. It's without Eloy. One thing that I just looked up today, which is not going to be in that piece. Eloy is, I think, going to be the designated hitter. I don't think there's anybody out there who doesn't think he's going to be DHing instead of in left field when he comes back.
Yeah.
Eloy has been DH in 9 major league games, in which he has hit 139. Some guys just, and it's not because he's got a big ego and he's got to be out in the field. He's a great guy. Some people just don't feel part of the game unless they're in the field. Jose's like that. If that is the case with Eloy, you got a real serious problem. If he really can't hit well as the DH, simply because he's not in the flow. It's like a basketball player comes off the bench and he needs time running up and down the court before he starts shooting. Hope that, it's a small sample size, 9 games.
I have no concern about that. 9 games is such a small sample. I get it. Eloy is, there's a reason he's so fun to watch, because he loves playing baseball. He loves being out there. We love watching him play. Even when he's in the field, I like watching him play out there. He's clueless, but
holding your breath.
To quote La Russa, he's clueless out there. But I think that it's a situation where you get Eloy up in that DH slot with the bases loaded, down 1 or 2 late in the game. He is going to find a way to find a comfy home in that DH spot when he hears the crowd. He'd have a full crowd rallying behind him when he comes up to bat. The place is going to go nuts when Eloy comes up to bat the first time when he comes back. And he's already going to Charlotte, so he's definitely on his way back pretty quickly. So I'm not really concerned. I get it, and you're right. There are guys who feel that way. Yadier Molina being an incredible example, a guy who not only wants to be in the field every day, but wants to be catching every day, which is incredible that he has the career that he has. I'm not as worried about that with Eloy, and I think you can't let him play in the field this year. We'll look at next year. Can't let him play in the field this year.
Since you mentioned Yadier Molina, that's not the direction I was headed, but we can skew off there a little bit. There is a question of catchers available before the deadline and who they might be. Zach Collins cannot cut it. His hitting's okay. He hits 239 against bad teams and 218 against good ones. That 218 against good ones, it's a lot better than most of the White Sox. Very few White Sox hit good teams at all. Tim does fine. Yuan does to an extent. Most of them do not hit good teams at all. Lurie hits 317 against bad ones and 186 against good ones. And with good ones, I'm just going 500 or above. It's not necessarily that they really are good or bad. And it's that way. Vaughn's average drops 80 points, and it is OPS drops 230 or so, and they're just a complete difference. And it happens with the pitchers. You know what Lance Lynn's ERA is against bad teams? 0.86.
Wow.
But he's at 3.59, I think it is. I may be off my pointer there, against good teams. You know who's really good against good teams and should be pitching game number 1 of the playoffs? Rodon is better against good teams than bad teams.
You pronounced it wrong.
I think against good teams.
You pronounced it wrong. It's pronounced Dylan Cease.
No, Dylan Cease's ERA against teams with 500 or above records is over 7.5. Dylan Cease should never be allowed to pitch against a team that has a winning record, ever, ever, ever. And I don't think he will. I think when the playoffs come, he will not be a starting pitcher. They don't need 5.
No way.
But he may be the long reliever. Who knows?
Of course, yeah. He'll be an emergency guy for sure. Yeah.
If he's on the roster. Kopech fits that role better. But at any rate, all of the other pitchers all do worse against good teams, as you'd expect. Everybody does worse against good teams. That's why they're good teams.
Yeah.
But some of the differentials are just humongous. The Lynn differential is humongous. The Cease differential is unbelievable.
Well, I'll give you the bonehead argument from the Twidiots, who I was enjoying last night. Their argument is that you beat the bad teams and you split with the good teams, and that's what great teams do.
That's right. But you have to split. That's the important part. You split.
16-24 is not a split.
No, that's
And
what we're like last year.
And if you look at the stats, when you're that bad against good teams, statistically, the stats you were just rattling off, that's not a split. That's not a split. That is, you are bad against them. You've won 16 of the 24 games. If 16-24 is a split, we're screwed. We're screwed if we split with everyone. No, it's just a stupid, idiotic argument. I mean, they're all saying, well, yeah, of course we beat the bad teams and we're not as good against good teams. That's how it works. I'm like, yeah, but not
Which
as
is true.
you still should have a winning record against the good teams because that's who you'll face. And if you don't have a winning record against them, that doesn't go well in a playoff series in which you need to win more than the other team. So it's just ridiculous. We have not seen the White Sox play well against, and they're all going to say, oh, we faced the Yankees when they were crushing it. Well, the Yankees suck, so whatever. And we faced the Astros when they were at the height of their game. Well, that may be true. When's the height of our game going to be against good teams? And then they say, well, we took 2 out of 3 from Tampa. Yeah, that's true. All it took was Tyler Glasnow's season-ending injury to help us do that. So these arguments are just they're insane. And I, as you know, am extremely pro White Sox. I love this team. I love these players.
As do we both. And my final point was where they get the argument goes. One of them says, "Well, maybe Rick Hahn will do something." And the other one says, "Yeah, maybe." That's and that gets us back to Yadier Molina. I don't think he's the answer to catcher. And part of it, I looked up Collins. Zach Collins is a terrible catcher. He's terrible. His wild pitch rate is more than double the league average. And yes, the wild pitch is on the pitcher, but you're supposed to block him. That's your job. His caught stealing rate, if you take out the 2 where the pitchers actually pick guys off base before it ever went to him, is less than 10%, which is career-wise what it's been the case, which is less than half of what is normal. I think normal is 23, 24%. He's horrible behind the plate, and they really could use somebody back there who knows what they were doing. Yadier Molina, I think if you bring him in, he's teacher's pet. He is just teacher's pet. He and La Russa just have too much going back together. And I don't know how that fits into a team chemistry.
Well, here's what I'll say. I would not be as concerned about that if Yachty were to come. I actually think this is the one thing La Russa could get us that would be extremely helpful. I love the idea of getting Yachty and just saying goodbye to Collins for the rest of the year, goodbye to Sebi, or have Sebi be the backup to Yachty, or have Zach be the backup to Yachty until Grandal comes back, and then both Collins and Zavala.
Do you really think Grandal's going to catch again this year? I don't think so. I think he's going to be back, but I bet he comes back as a DH, maybe a first. You take a guy who's had major knee surgery and put him in a catching position. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it just depends. I can't really speculate on what his recovery is going to be like, but I personally would love to get Yachty. Yachty is a beast. You know that Yachty would come to Chicago with that La Russa relationship, have something to prove, feel like he does need to achieve greatness when he gets shipped over to a potentially great team. I love the idea of getting Yachty. He's amazing behind home plate. I love watching him play. I love his energy. I love how much he loves being on the field. I actually think he fits in really well with this style of team, with these group of guys, these high energy, high passion guys. And I think he could come in and be really good because he has that relationship with La Russa, versus having to bring in someone who needs to prove themselves to Tony. I would actually go for Yachty if the price is right. Now,
okay.
Who knows if the price is right or not? That's the thing. I'm not willing to give up a lot of our young studs. I would rather just suffer through what we have at catcher than give up a lot of good players. But I'm not sure we'd have to give up a ton for Yachty.
Well, it's a rental, and he's 64, so
Yeah, it's a
and I
rental,
think
and
the other thing that he does do, ever since Yermin Mercedes got sent down, we're short of our quota of guys whose first names start with Y.
that's
So
true.
we need it brought back up again before we get arrested for that.
That's a really good point because we don't have Yolmer, we don't have Yonder, we're down to Yuan, and yeah, we
And
lost
yes,
Yermin and Yasmani, so we're hurting on our Y names. We used to be the beacon of Y named success, and now we're just a team with a third baseman with a Y name. It's a really big letdown.
and a catch and an injured catcher. Yeah.
And the injured catcher. Yeah, he's not playing right now though. So we got one Y out there. I'd like to get Yachty. Plus, Yachty's a situation where you don't even really need to worry about the offseason. You bring him in, you hope you get some great defense out of him, occasional big hit, but then that he's gonna go right back to St. Louis. It might be a let's sign him so he can retire a Cardinals situation, but it's not a guy that we have to think about paying money to in the offseason. I think if we don't have to give up too much, you go for Yachty.
All right. I don't have a better alternative. This is one of the things I was going to get to. There are a couple other catchers out there who are rumored to be available or catching for teams who obviously are dumping or will be dumping. So there's not a lot there on the catching. Way back preseason, when we got who's most important member of the White Sox, you will remember I said he's not the best, but the most important one is going to be Yasmani Grandal, because if he goes down, we're in big trouble. Whereas the other guys, we got somebody to play for him. Not as good, of course, but somebody decent to play for him. We have nobody decent to back up Grandal. So
No, we
uh,
don't. And you're still not wrong about Yachty being the most important part. And I've certainly have shifted my perspective, because I'm usually not someone who loves guys who bat 180. But he's just such an important part of the team, and he's got some good power this year. And you can't argue an on base percentage around 400, no matter how they're getting on base. If you're going to get on base and be there at around 400, same way I feel about Moncada. If you're going to do that, you're an extremely valuable player. Batting average is irrelevant if you're going to walk more than you hit. I'm eating dirt on my Yasmani criticisms from earlier in the year. I'm very pro Yasmani. I hope he has a speedy recovery. And when he comes back, I hope we have Yachty behind the plate. Yaz switching off, playing a couple games back there, not going too hard, playing some DH, playing some first, giving Jose a little rest, and then see what happens when Eloy comes back as well. And hopefully Luis Robert will be back by the end of the year. We have heard that his situation is going well, so that's nice that we've heard that now, and just fingers crossed that he continues to get healthy, because he will be a truly pivotal part of a World Series run if we're going to make it.
we could have with Vaughn playing a decent, if not overwhelming left field and hitting better and better every day, even hitting right-handers now. With Robert in center and Engel, who hits righties and lefties both in right. If you think you have to, you can platoon with Goodwin. But thank Eaton's gone. That's one thing we didn't get into.
Yeah,
Eaton's gone. Hooray! Hooray! Hooray!
Celebrate that real quick. You got to take the wins where you get them. Yeah, amazing. Can't believe it happened. Thrilled it happened. He'll probably get picked up by somebody. So whatever.
There was talk. Yeah,
Yeah,
I thought I saw something on the web. Somebody was. They said trading. I don't know why you trade. They dumped him. I don't think any trade needs to be had.
They dumped him outright. They released him of everything.
Yeah,
So
I don't think he's not on revocable waivers. He's just gone.
yeah, he's just gone now. So someone might pick him up. Who cares? Not our problem. Doesn't matter. Yeah, one thing I'm kind of interested in, which will probably not happen, is the possibility of uh, snagging Scope from Detroit. I'm reading that they think he's a good fit for the White Sox, but the White Sox have not traded a position player in season with the Tigers since the 80s. Isn't that
Well, and
crazy?
there's reason for that too.
Or no, they've done one. They've had one trade since the 80s. Right, of course. It's your interdivision rival. You don't want to be trading that much in between. That is still pretty crazy though. One guy in 30 something years, that's pretty wild. And so I do not think that trade will happen. I also don't see Frazier happening. Escobar is probably the most likely one because we'd have to give up the least for him. Uh, Still don't see it happening. I think we are with the crew that we're going to have, and I think ideally relief pitching will be what we go for, which I've said before on here. Do you have
Can't
anything
catch her.
else today before we send off?
No, I'm going to go to the optimist side of it. We are in first place with the best record in the American League, 17 games or 19 games over 500. Our division is 17 games under 500 because it's so lousy. It really is a AAA division, except for the Sox. But we're in it. It's not our fault.
Yeah, I'm positive about it too moving forward. Why? Because we're going to keep playing the AL Central and the NL Central. So as I said last podcast, I'm not worried about making the playoffs at all. Even with
worry.
our minor leaguers up, our minor leaguers are better than theirs right now. So we're gonna win this division. I've got full faith in that. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But hopefully we start getting these pieces back so we can actually split or beat the good teams for my Twitter losers out there. To quote a man who is former president, who these guys probably love, the losers and haters can suck it. So that's all we have today for Sharing Socks. Thanks for listening to us on this sort of weird post All-Star game purgatory area that we're in before we get started up again. But I'm excited for the second half of the season. I hope you are too. We'll be here for all of the action. From me and the geezer, thanks for listening to Sharing Socks.